Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg. I believe that the date is, it's Wednesday. I almost said Tuesday. It wasn't even a holiday on Monday, but it was an off day in baseball. So to me, I missed a friend's birthday yesterday because on the calendar it said Tuesday, but I thought it was Monday because we'd had that day. We'd worked 17 games in a row. My guest knows a lot about that. 17 games in a row, finally had Monday off, and so it messes everything up. Happy hump day, happy Wednesday. Hope you're all doing well. Coming to you live from the KCAV studios, Kansas City Audio Visual. If you've got audio visual needs, give me a shot. I can connect you, or you can check out their website. One other, and I'm going to do this on a very regular basis right now. I did announce in the last couple of weeks that I'm raising money for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'll have something with Royals first baseman. I don't even know what to call him anymore. A little bit like my guest coming up here. He's a third baseman, a right fielder, and a first baseman. As of the last week and a half, he's been a first baseman. Hunter Dozier is a spokesman for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I am a fundraiser for Big Brothers Big Sisters, so we'll have a little something coming up. I got some great donations in yesterday, but just want to let everybody know, if you want to make a donation, $10, $20, whatever it is, or more, you can text JGold to 44321. I'm just going to hit that every single day and see what we can do over the next few months. Have some really cool stuff planned. Anyway, when I started not just this podcast, but my audio podcast, the whole point in my speaking business was about tying in baseball and business and how similar it could be to building a culture and teamwork. And every now and then you see some guys that retire from baseball and sports, and they go on and they take that and they take it to another career. And that's the case for my guest today. I am joined by former mostly Boston Red Sox, but a little bit of White Sox, a little bit of Yankees, working for the Cubs, but more importantly, or equally importantly, Kevin Youkilis is the owner of Loma Brewing Company in Los Gatos, California, I believe San Jose area. Kevin, first off, thanks for getting up at a ridiculous hour, but how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm always up at this hour. So I've been up since probably 6 a.m. So this is normal for me.
All right. I love it. The life of a father and a business owner. And, I kind of joked on social media, on LinkedIn, that, the fictional character of Sam Malone went from Boston Red Sox bullpen to Cheers bar owner, but you're the real life longtime baseball player turned brewery owner. How did you, I know this is a long and detailed question, but how did you make that pivot?
Yeah. So the one funny thing, I got in trouble, the old Sam Malone, throw your towel over your shoulder. You're not allowed to do that anymore. So I actually had a Sam Malone experience, and my brother's like, hey, and my other partner, my general manager, Dan Reineke, they're like, hey, you got to take that off your shoulder. I was like, well, what do you mean? Sam Malone did it for all those years. Like, that's where I got it from. But yeah, I got into the craft beer business after I retired. It was something that I was planning kind of through the journey at the end. When I had a lot of time, when I had back surgery, and just thinking about the future. And so I fell in love with craft beer over the years while I was playing. When I would travel around to every city that we would go to, and I would just try new beer from different places. Boulevard Brewing Company was probably one of the bigger ones in Kansas City. Was one of my favorite parts about the visiting clubhouse was after the game, I could get myself a Boulevard brew. And I just really fell in love with it. I fell in love with talking to brewery owners, talking to brewers, understanding there's like this huge camaraderie between craft brewers, and it's the small dogs versus the big dogs, which is the domestic brands such as Anheuser-Busch and Coors and Miller that do amazing job with all the beers they've created. But we are kind of fighting to gain shelf space with those guys. So I opened this up 4 years ago. I had no idea what I was going to get myself into, but I think it's probably one of the greatest experiences of my life, because I've been educated on so many different things within the past 5 years of my life, from the business side to the hospitality and service side, and just managing a team. I think that's probably one of the hardest things of owning a business is I'm not a baseball manager. I know a lot about baseball and I knew a little bit about this industry. So I've been learning on the fly. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been very blessed to have a lot of great people that have helped me along the way.
There's so much to unpack here, as they say, and I don't know, news people say that now, I guess, that expression unpack. But there is, because one of the reasons why I started my speaking business 4 years ago, never having dabbled outside of this bubble, like that bubble, Kevin, that we live in sports, whether you are the star third baseman or first baseman, whether you're the broadcaster, whether you're the groundskeeper, whether you're the accountant in up in the front, whatever it is, like it's not a world that most people will ever live in. And it just has its own idiosyncrasies in the way that you travel, when you show up for work, all the nuances that exactly what I'm talking about. But yet what I saw was that there was so much in terms of culture and leadership and team building within an organization and a clubhouse that very much translates to the real world. Like I can't go and do someone's taxes or start to whatever profession it is, right? Anything from surgery to being a lawyer in the courtroom. But I understand team building and culture because of all the time that I've spent in locker rooms. And for you, and especially in baseball too, like such a diverse, every clubhouse is diverse, multiple languages. So how much did all of that experience translate into your starting a business or running a business?
Well, yeah, culture is the biggest thing within all businesses. You getting the right team together. The one thing I do know is the personalities are always different, right? Like you just said, it doesn't matter if you're on a baseball field or if you're in the workplace. That's one thing that I learned with great managers is basically what we're doing as business owners and high level managers is we're putting out fires all the time. It doesn't matter if you're at baseball or if you're in a business. Half of your job is putting out fires and figuring out the right way to put out those fires. There's the wrong way, there's the right way, and there's a lot of in between on certain issues. So I think a lot of the stuff that carries over, is the personalities within, is understanding personalities, getting to know people, getting to understand how to get the most out of them. I think if you're not the best managers in any business really sit down and get to know their employees, and also don't hire for that position. They hire for the person and their abilities and their personality that can fit in best with the team. So if I have 5 people I'm interviewing, I'm usually trying to figure out a little bit about them, figure out their background, think how they think. And, the resume is great. And if I have 5 people with the same exact resumes, I'm going after what person I think has the best potential to help our business out. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do in this industry versus baseball, because sometimes talent can in baseball you're going with talent sometimes a little bit more, and you're hoping that they can fit in with the culture of the clubhouse. Whereas with a business like that, it's kind of hard sometimes to understand that. So I rely on the people around me too, that have been in this business long enough, that have been fooled at a job interview and know, because there's sometimes I'm like, oh, that person's great. And they're like, no, that we're not, that's not the right fit. And it's pretty cool to, to learn that way. So a lot of carryover, and it all goes back to personalities and how you manage and managing styles.
How much did that clubhouse experience help in terms of needing to be that teammate to so many different types of personalities too? And look, when you came up, you were a young guy, a part of a pretty crazy bunch in '04, right? Yeah. And then you really were able to have a bigger role the next time it came around and you got that second ring. But I mean, that I can't think of a much more wild personality of guys. Maybe the Phillies that I grew up with in 1993, the Lenny Dykstras and all those guys. But you had the Johnny Damons and the Big Poppies and Johnny Gomes who we had here. What did that experience do for you today?
Yeah, that '04 team was really big, in a lot of ways, because I was a younger rookie. An older rookie. I was 25 years old. I didn't get drafted to my senior year of college, so I was a little late to the ball game, a little year behind at most. But I think the key for me was that what I learned was all these personalities, some really big, and they wouldn't mesh, right? But there was a group of guys, and they wanted to have fun, and they wanted to enjoy the game, and the different personalities off the field or in the clubhouse guys would hang out in different, groups and this and that. And then, but when those lights went on, that group of guys knew how to compete together. Everyone says, oh, it's all about the clubhouse chemistry and it has to be perfect. It's not perfect. Clubhouse chemistry goes in multiple different ways. You can have really good clubhouse chemistry because people really respect each other. They just don't get along. And I always say a good team, there's always going to be a fight at some point in that clubhouse over the 162 games. But it's the teams that get over that fight. It's the team that talk through it, the team that when that fight happens or that argument happens in the clubhouse, they keep it in the clubhouse and they come together as a group, apologize to one another and move on. They're not going to become best friends probably, but they're going to go out there and compete as teammates. They're high-fiving that guy. They're, cheering for that guy to make plays or make the right pitch. And that's no different than in business, because when you put 50 people together in a business, not everyone's going to agree or get along. I mean, just go to a holiday party and you'll see the craziest things that ever happen. And I always say that's my favorite time to really evaluate my employees is at the holiday parties. But that's basically what I learned from '04 was it's not a perfect family, but if you have the same goals when it comes to game time, that is the key to success.
It's fascinating too, because I think sometimes we want everybody to be one thing and they can't. I learned this a couple of years ago. I was talking to a business owner and they've got a real successful business and they wanted with one of the best cultures that you could possibly see here in town. And so they were hiring based on that culture. But then what they realized with some of the research was the guys working out in the warehouse didn't need to have that culture and didn't want to have that culture. They didn't want to be the ones that were engaging and being so extroverted. And when they were able to do that right, they became more productive. And so, it is a matter of filling those roles. And, I think too about communication and you watch leadership from some amazing managers, but not every situation is the same, right? And so you may need to have a discussion with someone at the brewery, and it more times than not, this, that you do those things privately, but you also have a lot of eyeballs on you. I will forever remember last year, and a lot of people saw this highlight, you probably did, although I know you're busy, of Trevor Bauer taking the ball and throwing it over the center field wall in Kansas City. And, it went to a commercial break as Terry Francona went to replace him. But Francona never waited around for the relief pitcher to come in. What I described it as, he tailgated him off the field and went straight up to the clubhouse. And I asked Tito about that a couple weeks later when we were in Cleveland, and he said, I had no choice. He embarrassed himself in the organization, and I had 26 guys all staring at me. What are you going to do about it? And right. So I wonder about that a little bit. That's just an example that not every situation is the same, but I know that you've been in some heated battles, how much that helps you now leading your organization, your brewery, when not everything is going to go smoothly every day.
Yeah. In that instance, having Tito for a manager and my best manager I've ever had, because I had him the most out of any manager. I always joke around, but he doesn't like confrontation either. Tito's not a confrontational guy. He doesn't like it. He wants you guys to police yourself. And those moments are very tough for him. So when I saw that, and my heart went out, because that's not a comfortable situation for Tito, and he got put in an uncomfortable situation, and that's what leadership on a team is. And I think that also led to why Trevor Bauer is no longer with the Cleveland Indians, is because incidents like that, it can be a detriment to the team, because those kind of actions can lead to different things. Now Trevor Bauer's doing great in Cincinnati this year. But sometimes those things are great talent is always good, but sometimes it can bring you down too. So that's the hard part of being in those positions. But what I've noticed too is when you're, I joke around, like, I can't be the same person I was when in baseball. Like, I get out, get upset, get pissed, go to the bat rack, like just put my helmet in hard or put my bat in hard, and just that little sound like made me feel like, okay, like, calm down and whatever. But you can't do that as a manager. You can't, like, or an owner or business, you can't go and just start screaming at people and then showing your rage. And I've had many different incidents where I've had to hold back and really calm down and I had to really think through my thoughts. And I've learned through practice and repetition. And, unfortunately, you just never want to get put in these situations, but they keep coming up in business. And you always have to be ready, because that one moment can really define who you are or your business. And if you make those mistakes too, and it's okay, we all make mistakes as owners and managers, you have to learn how to, suck up your ego, take your pride out of it, and go apologize for your mistake right away. And sometimes our egos get in the way, and we always think we're right, rather than, you know what, this is the proper time where I need to diffuse the situation and go about it a different way. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me personally and everything, like in baseball, is repetition and it's practice. And once you have more of that, you really start learning and understanding, how to go about situations differently with each employee, because one person you could be a little harder on and they want you to be harder on them. And another person you have to really understand, like, hey, you cannot go at this person that way.
I think that it's interesting because baseball is so similar. Of all the sports, to me, baseball is much more similar to what I call the quote unquote real world of being in any business, because it's every day. And I say all the time, baseball players don't work harder than football players, but football players spend their whole week gearing up for one day of performance. Baseball players, it doesn't matter whether you're a 4 for 4 or 0 for 4, you got to get back and do it again tomorrow. And, I mentioned the 17 straight games. Actually, I got a bunch of Royals that probably were unhappy with X. They'd won 6 in a row and suddenly looked like a really, really good team. They get one day off and they come back and they get smoked by a team that's been ice cold. So there's a rhythm to it, right? I mean, isn't there a rhythm to baseball that is similar to running a business where you don't get that time off?
Yeah, the dreaded off day when you're hot is it's funny. You need the off day because you played 17 or 20 games straight. But when you're hot at the end of it, you're like, oh, let's keep rolling, let's keep going about it, and that off day can sometimes bring you down a little bit. And so, yeah, I definitely know that crazy off day after a hot streak is never a good thing. But yeah, it's with baseball, it's a grind and it's every day. And it's like you said, it's not it's physical in different ways. I think it's the things that we have to do and sacrifice within baseball is people really don't understand the behind the scenes. People, like, I remember, like, people like, hey man, can you go to, we'll go to lunch at 2:00 and meet up. And I'm like, I'm headed to the ball field at 2:30. So it's gonna be a quick lunch. We're gonna have to get some, maybe some subs or something and get on out. But they just don't understand. You're at the field, you're doing things, you're there, and there's days you feel like you can't play. I mean, I remember I was actually in Kansas City one time and I woke up and I was like, there's zero chance I'm playing today. And I only remember this because I remember my hotel room and I remember waking up and I was like, oh my God, I'm in pain. And through the day, just, it's like, okay, another hour, feeling a little better. I was like, I'll go to the training room and, try to figure this out. And next thing you know, it's like, all right, ready to go, light switch. I don't feel 100%, but you know what? My team needs me. And who knows, me not at 100%, I still might be able to get, a couple hits, make some great plays, do some great things on the bases and running. And I think that's kind of the attitude you have to have in business too, is you're not going to feel great every day, but you just got to bring your A game as much as you can. And when, the people that show up in business every day and wanting to learn, and, it might not even be their favorite job, but they're grinding through it. And no matter what you do, even if you love what you're doing, you're going to have those off days, and you got to figure out through those bad days of how to get through them. And it's all mental. Everything in baseball and business is mental in a lot of ways. And you just got to figure out, what works best for you, and developing, better habits to lead you to doing your job the best you can.
Well, and I wonder too, I talk a lot about purpose, and, I think a lot of times as a ball player, you're not thinking about purpose. You're thinking about being ready to perform. And I think as guys get older, they start to understand that there is more of a purpose than just the winning and losing. And maybe that's, the way that you take a young guy in and pass on what you know, or maybe that is something with fans or charity. I know for me, this is what I dreamed of doing. I did not have your athletic skills. I could talk. And so it's what I always wanted to do. And so that was always enough until I started to understand that from our standpoint, there are always people watching, and there are people laying in hospital beds or stationed overseas that could care less if it's 13-0 and the thing's going 4 hours and there's a rain delay. They just want a distraction from whatever's going on. So that becomes very powerful. But I'm wondering, for you, baseball and now business wise, if you have been able to or found that why, that purpose of doing what you do.
Yeah, that's actually the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing is key. I think I always say this is every baseball player is playing baseball for a reason. There's multiple different reasons why a baseball is, people think it's very simple. Like every player plays because they want to win a World Series and, that's their goal. Well, I think everyone wants to win a World Series, but it's not their priority. It's not for some guys, it's money. Some it's for fame. Some it's for the luxuries that come with baseball in many different ways. So I always try to talk to that's the key with team building too, is having a bunch of guys that as much that want to grind it out and are just baseball dirt dogs. You need a couple of those baseball dirt dogs that want to get after it. And I always say the magic number is 3. If you have 3 position players that are dirt dogs, you can put talent around, and then you can also plug and play those guys that maybe have a different why and different purpose of why they want to play. But those dirt dog type guys allow for leadership in different ways. Some are vocal, some just go out and play, and they really help keep the glue together and get the most out of the players. So the purpose and why is always tough, right? And I've always said to my employees, first day I got up and talked before we opened, I said, listen, this might not be your dream job, and I totally get that. Be honest with us. Come to me and say, hey, I got this other job, and I'm going to give you a high five and a hug, and and I'm super happy that you're moving on to other things. But while you're here, just give us your best. Give us all your effort. Give as much as you can to the business, and good things will happen through that. And you don't ever know what your next job, if on your resume, if you put me on your resume, make sure that you're putting in all, we might have a good relationship, but I'm also going to be honest in a way too, of understanding that, hey, I'll be honest with you, and I might be honest with that other person, like great person, great this, here's what they do well, here's what they don't, and stuff like that. So just give your all while you're at that job. It might not be why your purpose of being there, but the more effort you put into it, the more you try to learn from that job and not act like you know everything about that job and you're just going through the motions. Every day you can pick up something new. And I think if you have that attitude in life, you're gonna reach, we've seen so many great people that have come through here that have gone on to better jobs, and they always had the stronger work ethic. They came here, they worked hard, and they left. Some days they were happy, some days they weren't, and it's okay, but they put in the effort.
And there's a pride factor, I'm sure, in that too, to watching them go on and do good things, having learned so much of what they did, at Loma and around you and around your people there. So what is it? I mean, you talked about finding this love of craft beers. What is it that you love? Put aside all the difficulties of owning a business, because
yeah.
That's very much like baseball. People don't see all of the behind the scenes, and they're not supposed to, by the way, either. They're not supposed to see the work that's going on in the training room. They're not supposed to see the PFP or the early work. That's all to get to, just like at the brewery, right? To take care of the customer and to have a good product and a good reputation. So I know that there's absurd amounts of work that goes on behind the scenes, but what do you love about being a business owner?
Yeah, what I love most about being a business owner is, one, just the people within. Just allowing people to do what they do best. I think that's always the key as a leader, is knowing and understanding that micromanaging is never a good thing. Letting people grow, trying to learn from people. As a boss, sometimes you want to just always be, you have the puppet and you're pulling the strings here and there, but sometimes you need to let them be a puppet with you and move you around and get your ideas flowing in different ways. Because sometimes yeah, and there's other, and on the reverse side, sometimes you have to get in there and do your, you can't just rely on people to do all the work. You also got to put in the work. But for me, I love the team aspect of it, of trying to build a good team. It's been hard. I know what I hate the most is firing people. That is by far the worst part of the job. It's just awful. But team building, and but for me in my business, it's easy a lot of times what the best thing is with craft beer, because when we produce a really good craft beer, that's always my favorite thing. But honestly, it's the purpose of what I love every day when I come in here is watching really good people interact in the hospitality business and putting a smile on people's faces, especially during these tough times during COVID, because, well, you can't really see them with their masks on, but you can kind of like get a sense of like how they're feeling. And especially outside on our where the picnic tables are, you just see people coming together and enjoying that pint of beer. And that to me is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, well, two things. I do want to talk about how everything has changed and how you've been able to pivot during the pandemic. But you just said something too, like you hear the expression all the time, just enjoy the game, right? Like we all can get so wrapped up sometimes in, you as a player, getting too worried about that slump or those numbers. And of course, it's so much easier said than done. Oh, process over results. I get it. I'm the one that says it, but I'm also not the one looking up at the scoreboard and seeing the slump that a guy is in. And, God forbid you have that slump in April where it's the only thing that you have and you're staring at that, 180 batting average. And so I understand the pressure to it, but I so often sit there and think, boy, if you could just take a breath and enjoy the game a little bit. You study the mental side of things. But as you said, looking back and watching that customer enjoying that beer, that has to be that enjoy the game moment for you, I'm guessing, of seeing that product actually affect someone in such a positive way.
It really is. I mean, repeat customers, we have so many loyal customers that come in, and now it's even crazier because I get an email every time an online order is, and you see the same names, and that brings so much joy to me that like they're not here just like, and we love having fans here that love my baseball career, and we're huge fans and they want to come support. But it's even better for the people that weren't even fans of me in a baseball sense. They're fans of Loma Brewing Company, and Loma Brewing Company is not me. It's a whole team of people that actually do way more of the hospitality work that makes Loma special. So yeah, it's really sometimes QuickBooks, we get so wrapped up in QuickBooks, and the thing about QuickBooks is, like you said, it's just numbers, it's stats, right? They just sit there, and just like in baseball, there's no emotion involved with that, other than if you look at 180 and you're like, ugh. Like you want to put your head down. It's no different than when you're P&L and you're looking at a monthly statement. You're like, oh my God, like what happened there? And you can get really emotional about it, but you can't change it like in the inner, like you can't do anything about 180 like right now, right? So all you can do is say, okay, how am I going to solve this solution? It's not going to happen like with a flip of the switch. I can't all of a sudden start taking my P&L statement and all of a sudden I'm going to show positives within one day. So you have to think long term, and you have to do little things. Everything is about little wins. I always say during this whole COVID thing, little wins is the key to staying sane, because you're not going to go from 180 to 300 in hitting in 1 week. If we're in the month of May, it's not going to happen. So you have this long season. You have you have 3 more quarters of business. What are you going to do in the next 3 quarters of business and make small strides? Too much what we try to do is in baseball, it's the same thing. I'm going to move my hands here because, the tech says if I get here, and then all of a sudden that might create another hole. It might help you. You never know. Same thing in business is, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to spend money to make money. Well, and then next thing you know, you fail because you didn't really think through it enough. You just thought that throwing money at this would be the solution. And I found that is probably the key to everything, is really figuring out a budget in place and understanding the value of what you're doing and how much money it brings back to you. Sometimes we get too emotional and we think, like, we get so excited about doing something to make money that we didn't really think through and just didn't allow time to heal it. Sometimes time is our worst enemy in our head mentally, because we think we're fighting this deadline instead of just like taking it slow and making slow strides.
There's so much of what you're saying that resonates with me personally, because, and I'm not running a business like you, but I started running my own business, and you know that there's a checklist. It's like owning a house. There's a checklist of things that never ends, and you can get in your head. And my best moments, I sit back and I say, wait, why are you putting this extra pressure on? Like, just keep pushing forward, and you don't need to figure it all out today, but you need to win the day, whatever that means. My broadcast partner, Jeff Montgomery, who's the Royals all-time saves leader, and he pitched, late 80s and then through the 90s, actually an Ohio guy like you, made his debut with his hometown team, the Cincinnati Reds, grew up in Weston, Ohio.
Yes.
And made his debut, and then in his second game, I think it was, I don't know if it was a blowout or whatever. I'm getting off track here, but you'll enjoy this. And his parents decided to get a head start out of Riverfront Stadium, so they drove back to Weston. And I think John Franco maybe blew a save or something like that. And then Eric Davis hit a homer, and he had to come in, and he gets his first, or maybe he was pitching first. He gets his first big league win, and his parents are listening to Marty Brenneman in the car on the way home, having left early and missed their son's win. But he said to me, and he wasn't a high draft pick, like you. I mean, he wasn't a first rounder. I think he was a ninth rounder, and out of college. And the coach or manager in rookie ball said to him, "Look, you've got enough talent to stick." And he had all the big names with him that you grew up watching too, in rookie ball. And they were all those top rounders, and they were all the guys that were going to have the easier path, so to speak. And he said, do something every single day to work and get better, and you're going to make it. And he said, I would sit there in the off season and I'd work on my pickoff move in the mirror, or do things in the snow, or whatever it was. And to me, that's exactly what you're talking about in terms of business, right? Those little wins every single day.
Yeah, I think that's it's huge, and I love the stories, the old Reds, and I probably remember these games, and Marty Brenneman and Joe Nuxall. I mean, and Joe in the background screaming, "Yeah, get out of here, and Marty like keeping his cool. But I mean, it brings me back to my youth, and my dad used to have 700 WLW on the radio 24/7. My dad didn't even listen to music; he just listened to 700 WLW, and he loved that station. For multiple different reasons. They had politics and sports, and but yeah, I think making every day I went to the baseball, there's a couple things when you're going really, really well too. I think this is also a thing with baseball is sometimes you're trying you're getting a bunch of hits, singles and doubles. Well, now you're 10 for your last 15. You're hot as hot can be. Well, now you're like, oh, I want to hit more home runs, and it's like, whoa. You just totally got off your game path. You totally pivoted into another way. And now you start seeing a dip because now you're trying to get too big. You're trying to do too much. And it's the same thing in business. When you're riding a hot streak, don't always mess with your hot streak. Keep doing what you're doing, but try to do a little bit. Just, when you try to, go for that homer all the time, there's going to be, it's going to be a roller coaster ride. We're seeing that in baseball right now. Mm-hmm. A lot of players are going through roller coaster rides, and that's where I get upset with players of today that are great hitters. I always just look at some of these hitters and go, I'm not arguing new school, old school. I know more, you know more. Like, there's nothing about that. It's the fact that you have so much more ability in you, and you're sacrificing it for something that is going to give you more of a roller coaster ride. I call it the ocean waves versus lake waves. Do you want lake waves or ocean waves as a season? I mean, I want the small waves as much as possible. I want the pond effect, and it's no different in business too. Emotionally, when you start getting that roller coaster ride, the days get longer. The job gets harder, and you just have to stick within what you're doing and figure out little things each day that can put you in a better spot for tomorrow. And understand, it's also your mentals, like doing meditation, doing mindfulness, like things that don't even pertain to your work. There's little things that you can do that help you at your job. And I think that carries over in baseball too. We've seen mindfulness and meditation introduced to a lot of players, and it helps them. And it's not even a part of like their mechanics or thinking about all that. It's just like in between a pitch, they can calm themselves down more. And just like in business, the more you can calm yourself down and take a step back, you're going to make better, thoughts, within what you're trying to accomplish.
I love that. I'm going to ask you the pandemic at the end, and some of the pivots for you with business, because I know how much it has affected any type of restaurant, bar owner, or service industry, or hospitality. But I want to hit the baseball themed questions, and you're one of the rare guests where it's, I guess, a double pronged question. So when I ask you about your biggest home run professionally, how about a baseball answer and a business answer?
Perfect. For home runs. Okay. My favorite home run in baseball. Wow. I got to think of this. One that rings, I mean, for me personally, what led us, I think, I think I had 150 homers. I could be wrong on that. Somebody might want to look up that stat.
I got it right now in front of me. 150 on the nose.
Oh, there we go. Good. I'm so glad I retired with 150.
Yeah,
so it's an easy number to remember. Right. But your first home run you'll never forget. It was the first game against Pat Hankin. I hit a home run on my second at bat. But the most memorable home run to me was the home run off CC Sabathia in Game 5 of the 2007 ALCS, and it was in the first inning, and we never looked back. It just ignited our team. We got crushed. That we were getting beat. We're down 3-1.
Yep.
Hit this ball off CC, and next thing you know, my teammates, man, I was just so lucky to have great teammates. I mean, they just carried on after that. I mean, it was just contagious, and we just started rolling and rolling and rolling. And we won in Game 7, and it was one of the most special moments of my life to relive not only the 04 ALCS being down 3-0, and then we do it 3-1 against Cleveland, and it was just such a special moment. So those two home runs are probably my favorite in baseball. In business, the greatest home runs I have are the people that I've hired here. My chef Aubrey, she's a home run. She's amazing. She's actually she's Midwestern. So it's funny. My general manager, Dan Reinecke, he's from Naperville, Illinois. We played baseball together. So he coming onto this was a home run too. So Dan and Aubrey were probably my biggest home runs, as well as our newest brewer, Justin Peck. He's a home run. We got him. He has experience from Drake's Brewing Company and worked at 4 Point Brewing Company in San Francisco. And those three people have been my home runs in business, because it's the people within that are the home runs. Because there's nothing that I've done where I've hit a home run in this business. I'm like I said, I've been learning more than anything. And these people have run this place so well that they are my home runs.
By the way, there's a beautiful humility to a lot of athletes. Not everybody has it either, where oftentimes they could be the star, and you are the face, obviously. Yeah. And I'm not saying you're just the face either. And I know you're going to make a joke then about being go ahead, insert joke if you want.
Oh no, I'm definitely the face. One of the best looking faces in the brewing world. No, I'm just kidding.
I knew there was something there. I just didn't want you to lose that opportunity if it was there. But there's a beauty. Like I was calling. You'll remember. I'm sure you faced them, and I don't know. I could look up the numbers. I don't need to, but I know it wasn't always fun. Facing Bruce Chen. A lot of guys didn't love facing it. Some did, but it wasn't the 90 that you were used to seeing. And I called him about a project I was working on the other day that he had been involved in. I'm taking care of someone, and it wasn't me. And I started talking to everybody else. Of course it was him. So I'm just saying, like, there's a beauty that you learn in that clubhouse too, of propping others up that deserve it, by the way, too. And I think it was Dan that you said that our starting second baseman here is a Naperville kid, so he may know him, a guy by the name of Nicky Lopez. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent again. Let's talk about the biggest swing and miss, both professionally. Well, it's all professionally, I guess, in terms of baseball and business. Swing and miss, and what did you learn from it?
Well, swing and miss in baseball. That's a really good question. I mean, there was a lot of swing and misses. There was quite a few. But there had to be one where I swung and missed to end the game. I mean, and when you're up there and you're going to swing and miss. And, as much as, I've had the opportunity where I've walked off games, I also, walked with my tail between my legs too, to the dugout while the other team is high-fiving. So, but in baseball, I was very fortunate. There's nothing I look back on because I had such a crazy path of just trying to grind through and try to get drafted and all that, that I didn't really have a lot of swing and misses. I think the only thing that I would say that I had swing and misses on were more just, just getting down, like basically being so hard on myself. I was really, really hard on myself for a long time. And people are always like, man, you're always so angry. I was just angry with myself. I always thought that every single time I got up, I had the intention of getting a hit. I know I couldn't, but I just knew there was something within that bat that I could have done differently to get a hit. And I always had that attitude. And I think that's what helped me become the player I was because I always was trying to figure out what I would do if I had that situation again. So I think for me, the swing and miss was being so hard on myself and not enjoying the game as much as I could have in a way because I was so hard on myself. I loved it. I loved everything I did. But and also, yeah, well, actually, sorry. And the other swing and miss was letting the game change from the money side and getting surly towards that. I think the hardest thing for me was I played the game of baseball because I loved it. I really, really enjoyed competing. I loved being at the top level and playing against the best players in all the world. And then once the arbitration thing came and in contracts, it kind of got me like just thinking in a different direction about the business side of baseball. And it makes you a little uncomfortable at times. So I kind of at times I didn't care about, I had one big contract and then I retired after that really. But I think that was the hardest part is the money side of baseball that can get you kind of a little jaded in ways of how you think about it. And I let it at times do that. So that was a swing and miss, two swing and misses for me. In business, the swing and miss is hiring people. Just sometimes my first brewer, we just couldn't figure out how to see eye to eye. And I tried so hard, and maybe I didn't go about the right way, but it just wasn't the right fit. And I kept this person on a little longer than I probably should have because we didn't mesh. We were just, it just wasn't a good fit. Great brewer, produced great beer, but it just wasn't the right fit. And sometimes you force, I think my swing and miss was allowing that to keep going over time and forcing that situation rather than saying, hey, listen, we just might not be the right fit for what we're trying to do here. And it was the same thing as talent over the whole entire package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. The final baseball themed question, and this could just be overall. It doesn't need to be baseball or business. And I think you've probably already hit on it. Maybe not. Small ball. What are the little things that add up to the big things? And this is what I talk about all the time. You were talking about small gains before, but we all want to hit the home run. And I love George Brett has always said, try easier. How often did you hear people say, well, I wasn't trying to hit the home run, it just went out? And so I wonder about that. What is small ball? What are the little things that add up to the big things?
Well, this is a great question because like we talked about in business, the small things are doing something small every day, figuring out cost savings on different things with, going to find a different product that has the same quality but is cheaper, and little things like that are your small wins, and figuring out different staff things too. But I think small ball in baseball is one of those things that is kind of dying in a lot of ways, and it really hurts me in a way because I was a guy that I found out that I didn't hit a lot of home runs in the minor leagues, but then as I started playing a little more in the big leagues, I figured out how to have more power. And what I learned was, though, you got to pick your spots. You can't just try to hit homers all the time, or you're going to just tank, right? And also you're going to tank in the way with runners in scoring position on those big opportunities where you have infield back and a couple of veterans I talked to. It's like, hey, just hit a ground ball to short, get that run in. That RBIs, your RBI total will keep going and going. Plus the run scored. That's what our job is, to win games, score runs. So for me, small ball is big in a lot of ways because it's not bunting a guy over all the time. It's the little thing. It's taking what they're giving you. If a pitcher is nasty that day and you're just trying to swing for the fences, your holes become so much bigger. And I just tell guys, it's just playing small ball is also just, with two strikes, whatever you do, if you choke up, if you spread out, if you do the little things and trying to make contact in a good positive way, not just trying to just baby the ball, but be a hitter. I think that's the key to small ball. And we're seeing a lot of it go away, but it's not the player's fault because there's people that are telling them it's okay. So that's the issue that I have is we're not getting the most out of our hitters that we can. And two, we're also giving too much credit to pitchers. Like, I am so tired of hearing, oh, these guys throw so hard. Well, guess what? When I played, they threw a lot harder than they did in the 90s and 80s, right? And you got to figure it out. You got to go out there and compete. I'm a huge. This is my biggest talking point to hitters is I don't want to hear how nasty that guy is that day. I don't want you to talk about how great he is. Afterwards, we can talk about it. But during that game, you don't give that pitcher any credit. He stinks. Dustin Pedroia, I used to always like laugh because he'd come back, he'd strike out or something, and he'd be like, "That guy stinks." Like right before I go up to bat, and I'm laughing, and but that was the attitude that Dustin had. That's the attitude I had, and we weren't the most talented guys, physically and all that, but we had the mental process of really going about it in that direction.
Well, you can win with a team of Dustin Pedroias and Kevin Youkilis's and because there's that grit and that grind and determination. And I mean, to me, you just can't go wrong with guys like that. Of course, you need a couple superstars on the team. If they have that same grind and grit, it makes it even better because now everybody is following them and doing, what they do. And so that ends up being really magical. But I love that too. And guess what? It'll keep evolving and changing. I mean, we got a kid throwing 102 here right now, and he's figured out how to control it. He didn't know how to do that last year. Now he's putting it where he wants. He's the eighth inning guy. And he said to us last week, he said, look, I'm not going to be very uncommon anymore in baseball because everyone as they come up now is going to be throwing 98, 99. And it's just going to be, that's going to be normal. So you're right. We have to adjust that. And that, by the way, is no different than business or anything in life. Everything evolves and you have to adjust to it. Okay, 4 final questions as we round the bases. These could be a little bit lighthearted or not. We'll start with this one. You're in the food and beverage industry now. Given a choice, I think I know the answer to this, to sit down for a bowl of clam chowder, you spend a lot of time in Boston, or some Skyline chili. Which is it?
Ooh, that's rhetorical. Skyline chili, baby. Any day of the week.
You can't lose those Cincinnati roots.
No. Any day of the week. If there's Skyline on that, I'm knocking that New England clam chowder over.
Is there a favorite order at Skyline?
Yeah, cheese conies. I get cheese conies, onions, and mustard. That's my jam. Just depends on how hungry I am into the quantity of cheese conies. So, but yeah, cheese conies all day.
All right. It was rhetorical, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about a Cincinnati institution there. Second question, the nickname when you were playing, other than Uke, that's obvious, was the Greek god of walks. Now I know on your Twitter feed it's the Greek god of hops. How much do you love that nickname, either that one from then or now, because it's truly unique? Like nicknames to, like, what do they call a guy named Goldberg? Goldie. What do they call a guy like Jeff Montgomery, my partner? Monty. Right? Every now and then you get like a fun nickname that no one will ever forget and it's unique. So tell me about that nickname and how much did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's a very interesting. Yeah, and by the way, nicknames, where they all go. I mean, you listen to all the baseball players of like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They had the coolest nicknames ever. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened. I mean, God, we just became unoriginal. Yes. But it was interesting because the Greek god of walks thing was interesting. It was a hard thing because everyone thought I was Greek, but I'm not Greek. Right. I come from Jewish Romanian roots on my father's side. So it's very interesting how many Greek people like would come up to me and start speaking Greek, and I'm like, "Wait, that's not Hebrew." I was like, "I'm not getting this." But I think the hardest part of being called the Greek god of walks was people in the stands going, "Hey, come on, man, get a walk!" And I'm like, "The hell?" I'm like, "Get a walk? Who? You paid good money? You paid $250 for this seat to watch me walk?" I was like, "You better get out of here with that." I was like, "I don't care if I walk, but I'm going up there to try to get a hit." Right. So it was fun, though. I mean, it put me on the map in a lot of ways. I was in AA when that book came out. So it taught me a lot. Media members wanted to talk to me all the time about this book. So it also gave me an introduction to really understanding the media and talking. So the nickname was great. And then I never got paid for the Greek god of walks. So I decided, hey, I'm going to make some money off it and say the Greek god of hops. So we've got our double IPAs, the Greek god of hops, and we kind of have some fun with that.
It's perfect. And as Rex Hudler, one of my broadcast partners, often says, he's not a mailman. He's not looking to walk. So, yeah, nobody gets into the game wanting to walk, but there's certainly a product of patience there. All right. I love that one. And so, okay, we have learned that your Greek is not very good. You could probably read Hebrew like me. But somehow you ended up being the Jewish guy that got the athletic skills. See, there was somebody.
There's a few of us.
There's a few. The rest of them went and did what I did, which is just fine. Okay.
Broadcasting or basketball coaches? I don't know why. Basketball coaches.
I don't know either. Sometimes both. Yeah.
The JCC. I mean, they just sat there and watched so much and designed plays.
Front office, by the way, in for life. That one's a guarantee.
Yeah, that's. Oh man. Oh, I got a chance.
You got it right. Third question, as we round the bases, it's a beer question. And this isn't a fair one. This is like asking you, Kevin, okay, of your kids, which one's your favorite? But do you have a favorite beer?
You know, that is a hard one always, right? I think for me, I love styles, right? So I'm into hoppy beers. I can't drink as much IPA as I used to, but I always get a half pint. I'm just one of those guys that like I don't drink as much as I used to, and it's a good thing in a lot of ways with 3 kids. But pale ales and IPAs are my favorites. So I'd go with any pale ale we have or IPA.
I love that. And yeah, I think I'm along the same. I'm willing to try everything, but the IPAs, especially like the more mild ones for me, but it depends. It's a mood thing too. To me, it's a mood thing depending on where you're at. So, okay. Final question, the walk-off as we round the bases here and wrap it up. I mentioned surviving the pandemic. Of course you still are. And the restaurant bar industry has been hit worse than anyone, and people that make their living and their whole lives in that industry suddenly having to deal as you are as an owner. Just want to know how you've pivoted and what your biggest lesson or takeaway is or has been in these last 6 months.
Yeah, this pandemic's been really tough on the restaurant business, the bar industry, the hospitality industry, you name it. It's also giving us a big opportunity to really understand and get to pivot, like you're saying, in a different way. I think that's the one thing we're doing right now. We have QR codes where you take your phone, you put it up to it, all of a sudden you click on it, and now you get the menu and you can order. So we pivoted into QR codes outside where people can order their food and drinks, and then they can come pick it up inside. And that's going to be something that we're going to use down the road too. We're going to probably use QR codes more within the whole entire restaurant once we're able to open. That restaurants are going in that way for many different reasons. Restaurants don't make a lot of money. I think people don't understand the restaurant business, how tough it is, and how behind on the times we are of thinking that restaurateurs, have all this money and they're doing all these great things. Now, you got the big ones that maybe have chains and stuff like that, yes, they make more money than the ones that are small mom and pops. But the thing that we've learned the most here, and it's also been awful in a lot of ways, is we've had to cut staff. We've had to, just cut down on the amount of food we're prepping and doing all the little things that, in the menu change. I mean, we had to change menu items because we can't give you an entree, but like a steak or something outside to sit it on a picnic table. So we've kind of kept it simple in that way. And we think that's also something that, that we can move in that direction as we open up, which we don't know. The problem we're having right now is Santa Clara County, which is San Jose mainly, and where we are at, is not allowing us to open at 25% capacity, but the state has a red tier system that says we can. So we are in this like crazy point where the state is saying one thing, the county is saying another, and we're just literally like waiting for them with no plan. And I think what I've learned most about this whole thing is I've learned more about the government than I ever have in any classes I took growing up. Everyone always is so worried about the presidential election. I say, as voters, you really, really need to digest your county officials more than anyone. It should be county, state, then you go to the federal level. But the media doesn't like that because it's not as sexy to talk about. So I always tell people, really, really get knowledgeable on your county, because when things go bad like this, your county, your legislators within, those are the people that are going to dictate what you can and can't do. So it's very important to get become educated, county first, state second, and then federal. But that's my opinion. I mean, people might think the other way, but in what we do, we've learned so much about that, and understanding that we're basically being held, I don't want to say hostage, but pretty much close to being held hostage right now by the county.
Well, I've seen some of what you've been talking about on social media, and I'm sure that you never thought you were signing up to be in politics, not in politics, but to have to deal with politics. There's politics and everything, but this is at a different level. And so, I hope all that opens up for you guys soon, and not just you guys, I mean, all over. And I'm not getting political on that one either. I'm a firm believer in science and safety, but I know that people need to be able to survive here. People need to be able to get out there and do it in a safe way. And so I'll tell everybody, and I'll pop this up again, Loma Brewing. And if you're listening, it's lomabrew.com. So check them out. And they certainly, you can get stuff too in their shop there. You got a lot of great gear. And certainly for anyone that's in the San Jose area, you could check out Loma Brewing and Kevin and all of his great people there. I appreciate this. Oh, I just thought of this real quick as we wrap it up. I was interviewing Steve Stone a couple weeks ago, the legendary baseball announcer, former Cy Young Award winner. We had him on after Tom Seaver passed, and he was in Chicago. And right before we go on, and I grew up watching him, like, this would be like you having Marty on or talking with Marty. I grew up watching him in Chicago with the Cubs. And right before we start the interview, he goes, "Joel, it's my anniversary." And I'm like, what am I supposed to, like, what? I'm like, "Congrats." He goes, Steve? "Yeah, 60 years ago today, bar mitzvah." I'm like,
you never know with Steve what he's talking about.
You never know with Stoney, but I was like, I just got that from Steve Stone. That's a pretty cool thing. So anyway, I don't know, my mind just went there, but hey, listen.
And last thing too, I know you've been popping up the lomabrew.com. I also have a coffee company that we didn't talk about, but for anyone out there, loma-coffee.com. We just opened up about a week ago in Portland, Oregon. So if you're in that area in Portland, Oregon, ever, go stop in there. And and there's retail bags available online too. So we just started that, and one of my other favorite things in life, coffee.
I saw that on the website, or at least somewhere. And so I don't know. I look at so much stuff, but I did see that. And so I'll have to mention that. Well, first off, we just mentioned it here. I don't know if I got this one right, but I'll pop that
there
one up.
There it is. Nice. Right.
Just working on the fly here. So loma-coffee.com. I can definitely do that. I will do that. My brother lives in Portland, so I'll have to let him know about that one too.
Oh, perfect.
Check it out. Good luck with everything with Loma Brewing and Loma Coffee. Can't thank you enough for all the time today. And I can't wait to come down and visit at some point. So appreciate it, Kevin.
Yeah, anytime, Joel. And hopefully in spring training, let's meet up.
Spring training. Yeah, that's right. You'll be there with the Cubs, right?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll be somewhere else. Who knows? You never know these days.
Listen, none of us know what's going on next week, next month.
They might not let me back. Who knows?
They'll let you back. All right, Kevin, appreciate it. Thanks for spending the time today.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you all so much for watching. I did get a nice comment from my buddy Mike Meyer, who said building culture to teams within the team is huge. Everyone feels a different connection to the team, and embracing that difference can help bring everyone together for the overall common goal and ultimately build great culture within your organization. Great lessons. So Mike, appreciate that one. He's got Band of Angels and Meyer Music, which is amazing. I appreciate everyone for watching today, and we'll be back tomorrow with another episode. My name is Joel Goldberg. Thanks to KCAV, Kansas City Audio Visual, and Enterprise Bank and Trust, #NoStoppingYou. See you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.